The ocean. If you're like me, you're fascinated by the ocean and its wonders. I mean, growing up nearby oceans my entire life, I've always wondered what sort of creatures lurk underneath. We all know that feeling when you're just swimming and you look down into the giant abyss. It's a tad bit sketchy at times, which is why I present to you the Ocean Mystery Iceberg, where we'll be covering the most obscure / mysterious things that have to do with the ocean. Now, if you're new to this channel and you don't know how an iceberg explained works, I will explain it thoroughly. An iceberg explained is essentially a chart that goes from top to bottom of the iceberg, and at the top of the iceberg, it's relatively common things that mostly almost everybody knows. But meanwhile, when you go down under the iceberg, things get rather obscure and weird. I have a series, maybe about 3 of these videos on my channel, so feel free to check those out if you'd like to. So without further ado, my friends, I will not keep you waiting. Let's get right into this. The 80%. This refers to 80% of our ocean actually not being discovered. I mean, there is so many areas of the ocean that have not even been touched by mankind. Due to the intense pressures inside the deep ocean, it makes it extremely difficult for anyone to explore, which is why only very specifically designed vessels are actually able to go underneath the ocean to certain amounts of depth. So who knows what lurks under there? Giant oarfish. Now, the oarfish is a very unique sea creature. It's estimated that it's somewhere around 36 feet long that it could grow up to in some cases. And it's a relatively long, almost a worm-looking sort of fish. Usually it spends its time floating vertically in the water, trying to camouflage itself. But what if I told you there is a giant oarfish, and they're primarily responsible for many legendary stories? It's been said that some can grow over lengths of 50 feet. Now, these are all just stories told by mouth, but I'll let you guys decide what you think. Osborne Reef. Osborne Reef is an artificial reef off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's essentially an artificial reef that consists of a large amount of tires, which so happen to be home to many of the fish there. However, unfortunately, many good things come to an end as the salt water corroded the restraints that held the tires together, and the project inevitably failed, unfortunately. Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is essentially a collection of marine debris in the North Pacific Ocean. It's just a wide area of trash, and there's estimated to be 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic in that water. It's a sad sight to see that we as humans caused this. But besides that, humanity is still trying to pick up the pieces from this mistake. Lake of Despair. Now, this is a deadly lake that is at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, and it causes a large amount of animal fatalities. Now, when you picture a jacuzzi, this is not one that you'd want to get into, as it's a toxic pocket of hot seawater that will certainly kill anything that swims into it. So, anything that swims into the jacuzzi of despair, basically crabs, amphipods, and unlucky fish, they will certainly perish, unfortunately. Old sea monsters. Old sea monsters essentially refers to the numerous tales that we have about sea monsters in general. A good example of this is the Leviathan, which is pretty much a root in most of the sea creature myths. And it definitely takes home the title for oldest and most fearsome of the sea creatures. Another good example of this is the Kraken. Purple orb. This refers to this mysterious purple orb that is underwater. It's thought that the orb belongs to another related group of snails. However, it remains a mystery. Most scientists just agree that it's a type of sea slug, but this thing looks like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. 400-year-old shark. This refers to a 400-year-old Greenland shark that is the oldest vertebrate animal. And this led to scientists finding out how long these creatures can actually live. This would mean that this shark was born during the reign of King James from England. Just to give you an idea of how old this shark really is. Now we're going deeper into the depths of the iceberg. starting off with Bermuda Triangle. There are many myths and legends focusing on the Bermuda Triangle, and it's a loosely defined region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean where a number of aircraft and ships are said to have disappeared under mysterious circumstances. There have been numerous tales of flights and disappearances, one of which was Flight 19, which was a training flight of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that disappeared on December 5th, 1945 while flying over the Atlantic. And the flight never returned to base, which then led to a long search and rescue operation, but to no avail. Green flash. Green flash is an optical phenomenon that you can see shortly after sunset or before sunrise. And it happens when the sun is almost entirely below the horizon with the barest edge of the sun still visible. And for a second or two, the upper rim of the sun will appear green in color. And this happens because the atmosphere causes the light from the sun to separate or refract into different frequencies, which it absolutely looks amazing. Atlantis. As a child, I've always wondered about the mystery of Atlantis and even if it's ever existed. Now, Atlantis is a fictional island mentioned in Plato's works, which has been said to have sank off the course of northwestern Africa around 12,000 years ago. And there was many theories saying that it was inhabited by an advanced civilization. Now, there's no conclusive evidence of its existence. However, many scientists and historians are still trying to find the mystery of this so-called Atlantis. Sea monster of Daedalus. Now, forgive me if I butchered that, but the sea monster of Daedalus is described as a snake-like monster, so essentially a sea serpent, which was usually native to Norwegian folklore. But on August 6, 1848, at about 5 p.m., the captain reported that an enormous serpent, at least 60 feet long, was somewhere in the South Atlantic, and they say that it has a tail or another fin, and was probably moving at around less than 10 miles per hour. They also state that it was in sight for about 10 minutes and that the eye, the mouth, and the nostril were all distinctly visible. And I gotta say, I'm astonished. A serpent that is 60 feet long. That is, wow. Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster, otherwise known as Nessie, is a creature in Scottish folklore that is said to inhabit Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. It's often described as a large, long-necked creature with one or more humps protruding from the water. They also have a photograph of it that has now been known as a hoax. There are numerous reported sightings. We have reports in 565, 1871, 1933, and that's only a select few of them. Now, many people claim that the creature is real. Whether it is or not is still to be decided. What do you guys think? Kaz 2. Kaz 2, also known as the Ghost Yacht, is a ship that was found drifting 88 nautical miles off the coast of Australia. Now, during the investigation, Queensland police searched the ships for any signs of foul play and or third-party involvement, and they found the cabin to be tidy and neat from some magazines, a piece of paper, and a wine cask which was lying on the floor. And they noticed also that there was a disappearance of the crew. So everything in the ship remained intact, however, the crew was essentially just missing. And the report states that from that point, the end would have been swift. None of them were good swimmers, the seas were choppy, and the men would have been quickly exhausted and sunk beneath the waves. So it's said that the report ultimately rules out foul play and staged disappearance, which is ultimately pretty creepy. How does an entire crew of a ship just disappear with no evidence found? We are now sinking deeper into the iceberg. Immortal jellyfish. This refers to a species of small, biologically immortal jellyfish that are found worldwide. They're one of the only animals that fully possess regenerative capabilities, as well as being the only species of jellyfish with an indefinite lifespan. And when they go out through their quote-unquote life cycle, they can hit the reset button and revert to an earlier stage, which only begs the question, if that's one species we know of, imagine all the other ones. And you attribute that with the fact that 80% of the ocean is left undiscovered, there could be so many creatures that have infinite lifespans. Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea, also known as the Devil's Triangle, is a region in the Pacific south of Tokyo, and it's usually considered to be a paranormal location, though the claims of this has been questioned for a while. It's said that on the 4th of January 1955, Japanese ship Shinyo Maru no lost radio contact near Mikurajima. Japanese newspapers then began to label the location as the Devil's Sea until the ship was found safe on the 15th of January. But this is just another one of those spots in the ocean that there are numerous disappearances of ships as well as aircraft. And I find it quite interesting that there's specific spots in the world that cause these things. Rogue waves. Now, if you have thalassophobia, watch out with this one. Rogue waves are an unusually large, unpredictable, and suddenly appearing surface wave that can be extremely dangerous to ships. They are distinct from tsunamis, which are almost unnoticeable in deep waters. Now, just to explain to you how dangerous these waves can be, they can disable and sink even the largest of ships and oil rigs. These are very, very big waves, and there are many encounters of them over the internet. So you do not want to be trapped in one of those. Big fin squid. They're a rarely seen group of cephalopods with a distinctive morphology, and it was only found around 20 years ago. It could also be found throughout the world's oceans where they can live up to 4,800 meters in depths. There was actually one recently caught on camera that was spotted at 2,385 meters, which in simpler terms, that's 7,824 feet, or roughly 16 skyscrapers deep. Man, the ocean's scary. Point Nemo. Point Nemo is an extremely remote location in the ocean that is the farthest from land. If you want to get away from it all, head down to Point Nemo. And it's said that it's very possible that no human has ever passed through Point Nemo's exact coordinates. It also serves as a cemetery for our space debris. And the closest people to this point of land are in the International Space Station. So that gives you an idea of how far this actually is from the nearest piece of land. But hey, looks like a peaceful little place. Won't have to worry about taxes there. For legal reasons, this is a joke. Mary Celeste. Mary Celeste was an American registered merchant brigantine. It was found drifting towards Genoa on its intended course for 11 days with no one at the wheel to guide her. Captain Briggs, as well as his family and the crew of the vessel, were never found, and the reason for the abandonment of the Mary Celeste has never been known. Now, the current location for the Mary Celeste is somewhere off the coast of Haiti where it became stuck. World's oldest mammal. According to scientists, the world's oldest mammal is known as the ocean quahog. And these things have a lifespan at around 500 years. And a quahog is essentially a type of clam. And I mean, look at these things, dude. Like, they just look ancient. Now, that was part one of this iceberg. Unfortunately, I can't record the entire thing because that's going to be a hell of a long video. So I decided to split it up in parts. I will continue with the rest of the 5 slots of the iceberg in my next video. However, if you're interested in this series, please leave a comment down below. I am absolutely enjoying this. I'm going to try to get that part 2 out by around next week. That way you guys can binge on just a part 1 and part 2 of this amazing iceberg. Like, the ocean and the mysteries that surround it are just so fascinating. So I'm going to spend a hefty amount of time of editing this video for you guys now. And just make sure you're subscribed, because you do not want to miss this next video that is going to release. Also, I really love this iceberg niche. I think it's extremely fun to do. I love putting in the research. So if you guys have any suggestions for an iceberg video that you want to be covered, drop it down below. I'm more than happy to take part in it. I just love talking about various topics and covering these things. I just find it so fascinating, and it strikes conversation in my comment section, which I absolutely love to read. So whichever suggestion you think is good, I will pin it down in the comments, and that is the one that I will be doing. But until part 2, I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.